Hi, well, welcome back to the show. It's very exciting because it's time for our third book review. Can't believe I'm now halfway through the series. Obviously, we've got book 7 coming out next year, but I'm now halfway through the Game Changer series. That is just, wow, that is just incredible. So today we're going to be reviewing book 3 in the series, which is Tough Guy. I'd say I actually really did like this book. I mean, throughout reading it, I kind of felt, given the length of the chapters, I'll go more about this later on in the personal response. I felt a lot of the chapters were quite short, so I kind of felt like, okay, I'm reading the book, and we're getting into the story, we're learning about the characters, we're forging our relationships with them, but I still feel at the same time, there's still a lot more story to be told, so I kind of feel like if anybody deserves a sequel, it's these two. So I just love to learn more about what happens with their story. So I kind of felt like, whereas a lot of way when I was reading the book, I was like, yeah, it's good, but I still kind of feel like there's a lot more story to be told here. So I'll go more detail into that, obviously, later on with my personal response. So very excited. So book 3, halfway through the series. That is just incredible. That is just incredible. And I'll be now on book 4, so I'm going to be starting that quite soon. If you check out my Blue Sky, I've done like a ranking so far of the 3. I'm going to be doing that again with where the other books, and I'll publish the full ranking on my Instagram, which you can follow at George T. Hand. So that'll be where I've read all the books. Okay, so let's get going. So we're going to start as always in these reviews with the content summary. So let's get started. Let's get stuck in. Here we go. Tough Guy by Rachel Reed is the third book in the Game Changers series. It features an opposite-attract romance between Ryan Price, a massive NHL enforcer with severe anxiety, and Fabian Sala, a flamboyant, confident musician who reconnect 13 years after sharing a brief past. I'm now going to take you through some of the key plot points. So first up, we've got the reunion. Traded to Toronto, Ryan runs into Fabian more than a decade after harboring a quiet adolescent crush on him. They start a slow burn relationship where Ryan slowly opens up about his severe anxiety, panic attacks, and struggles with intimacy. Fabian discovers that Ryan is hiding a severe back injury and relying on heavy painkiller injections just to stay on the ice. Disgusted by the self-destruction and toxic hockey culture, Ryan defends. Fabian walks away. The wake-up call. A devastating turning point hits when a fellow enforcer dies from an overdose. At the funeral, a candid talk with Ilya Roznov makes Ryan realize hockey doesn't make him happy. And the last plot point I'm going to talk about is the decision. So Ryan decides to quit professional hockey for good. Ryan surprises Fabian at his album release show. They confess their love and plan a future together. Okay, we're going to move on now to my critical analysis. This is where we talk about the characters and the themes of the book. So we'll start with the character breakdowns. If you haven't seen the previous 2 book reviews, the way we do the character breakdowns is we just stick with the couple of said book. Okay, so that's what we do in the critical analysis. So, going to start with Ryan Price first. Ryan Price is the main protagonist of Tough Guy, the third book in Rachel Reed's popular LGBT plus romance series, Game Changers. He is a professional ice hockey player who serves as a complex deconstruction of the traditional sports enforcer archetype. His core personality and motivations: severe clinical anxiety, in stark contrast to his fearsome on-ice persona. Ryan suffers from severe, debilitating panic disorder and low self-esteem. His internal world is constantly plagued by anxiety, which he hides from the hockey world out of fear of being perceived as weak. Closet and isolation. Ryan is gay, but stays quiet about it during his early career. His anxiety and the fear of his secret getting out cause him to isolate himself, preventing him from bonding deeply with teammates on previous teams. Chronic pain and substance reliance. Years of playing the role of the enforcer take a massive physical toll on his body. To keep playing and cope with the physical trauma, he develops a dangerous dependency on painkiller injections. His key relationships: Fabian Sala. Ryan's life changes when he moves into Toronto's LGBT plus village and reunites with Fabian, a flamboyant goth indie musician. Ryan had lived with Fabian's family as a 17-year-old hockey prospect. Fabian loathes hockey and its typical culture, but loves Ryan because Ryan was always gentle, sensitive, and different. And then finally, his character arcs: sexual and emotional healing. Fabian provides a safe space for Ryan. Together, they navigate Ryan's anxiety and the sexual difficulties stemming from his performance pressure and mental stress. Fabian introduces Ryan to a dance club and a vibrant gay community, allowing Ryan to experience true joy for the first time. Found family and support. While Ryan initially struggles to make friends, the Toronto Guardians' backup goalie Wyatt Hayes aggressively pursues a friendship with him, breaking down Ryan's walls and giving him much needed locker room support. The ultimate choice. The climax of Ryan's arc centers on his physical breakdown when Fabian discovers the dangerous extent of Ryan's painkiller use. He walks away, forcing Ryan to choose between destroying his body for a sport that uses him up or retiring to choose a healthy, authentic future. Ultimately, Ryan chooses his health, retires from the NHL, and transitions to coaching at the Game Changers hockey camp while happily touring with Fabian. Speaking of which, we're now going to move on to Fabian. So Fabian Sala is the flamboyant, unapologetically feminine protagonist and love interest of NHL enforcer Ryan Price in Rachel Reed's romance novel Top Guy, the third installment of the Game Changers series. An inspiring goth pop musician living in Toronto's LGBT plus village, Fabian serves as the perfect opposite attract counterpart to Ryan, challenging standard hockey culture stereotypes with his confidence, gender-bending style, and fierce independence. His core personality and motivations: confidently feminine, Fabian embraces a bold, gender-fluid aesthetic He is often described wearing eyeliner, nail polish, lace tops, and heart-shaped diamond jewellery. He has zero desire to tone down his presentation for anyone's comfort. The artistic. As an independent musician, his life revolves around his music, local art shows, and creative expression, standing in stark contrast to Ryan's brutal world of professional hockey, which Fabian openly loathes. Fierce and protective, despite his slight build, weighing around 125 pounds, Fabian is emotionally formidable. He refuses to apologise for who he is and acts as a safe, supportive anchor for Ryan. Relationships. Fabian guides Ryan through Toronto's gay scene, helping him find genuine joy outside the toxic constraints of the hockey world. He provides unconditional acceptance for Ryan's anxiety and sexual difficulties, establishing a bond rooted in emotional honesty. And then finally, his cat arcs. Fabian represents a crucial break from typical hyper-masculine sports romance leads. Rather than undergoing a complex coming-out arc, Fabian is introduced as fully self-actualized and secure in his gay identity. His presence shows how alternative chosen families and visible unapologetic femininity can thrive entirely on their own term. Okay, and then I'm going to finish off with doing the themes of the book. So first up, we've got vulnerability versus traditional masculinity. The book actively challenges rigid gender stereotypes by contrasting Ryan and Fabian's expressions of identity. On the ice, Ryan is expected to be an aggressive, violent goon. Not my words, by the way, just point that out. Off the ice, however, he is an incredibly shy, gentle man who struggles with debilitating panic attacks and self-image issues. Fabian completely discards conventional expectations of manhood, comfortably wearing makeup, rompers, I think that's how it's pronounced, and expressing himself through music. Ryan finds intense security and attraction to Fabian's quiet bravery to completely be himself, which ultimately helps Ryan find the courage to prioritize his own well-being over social expectations. Okay, next theme is the toxic toll of professional sports culture. Reed pulls back the curtain on the harmful systems within elite hockey culture, focusing heavily on how the role of an enforcer corrodes a player's physical and mental health. Ryan's levelhood depends on his willingness to inflict and receive physical trauma to protect real players. The narrative highlights the intense pressures to conform to a hyper-masculine locker room culture, play through agonizing pain using dangerous anti-inflammatory injections like Toradol, is that how you pronounce it? And suppress mental illness. The ultimate tragedy of a fellow enforcer's overdose forces Ryan to confront the systemic, disposable nature of his role. Okay, moving on to identity and career transitions. A central conflict in the book is the daunting reality of redefining oneself outside of a lifelong career. Ryan feels that hockey is the only thing he has, leaving him terrified of what happens when his body can no longer sustain it. Through his relationship with Fabian and his introduction to Toronto's vibrant LGBT plus village, Ryan begins to experience life outside the ring. The novel emphasizes that true strength involves knowing when to choose softness, step away from an environment that causes harm, and reinvent your future. And the last theme I'm going to cover is adolescent longing and second chances. The story uses a classic second chance romance trope grounded in teenage history. Ryan and Fabian nearly shared a kiss during their high school years when Ryan lived as a closeted teenager boarding with Fabian's family. Reconnecting more than a decade later allows both characters to unpack how their adolescent experiences shape their current lives. The narrative highlights how unresolved feelings from the past can serve as a catalyst for profound personal healing and growth in adulthood. Okay, so we're now going to move on to my personal response. This is, of course, where I get to share my thoughts about the book. So, I'm going to get stuck in. And I'm going to start by saying how much I loved that straight away we developed Ryan's character. While he is a hockey player portrayed as a bad boy, I feel he really is a big softie with a vulnerable side, which is demonstrated straight away with his problems. There's no lovely way to say it! There's no lovely way to say it, but with his problems masturbating. There we go. There's no lovely way to say that, guys. Yeah. But what I love is how I kind of feel Ryan's going to be more relatable than we all thought. Because I think there are a lot of men out there who really do, even though they will not admit it on the camera, there are a lot of men who do struggle in this sexual department. Yeah, I think having a character like Ryan, it's gonna make a lot of men feel more comfortable about that, and maybe want to try and seek help. I mean, we do a lot on the telly here in the UK. We do get a lot of ads about erectile dysfunction. It's like, okay, I want to go home now. Oh wait a minute, I'm at home. But you do get erectile dysfunction gets advertised a lot on the telly about how men should try and go and see it if they think something's, But yeah, a lot of men they do, even having just like a cheeky wank is even sometimes a bit of a struggle. But yeah, so I love how straight away with Ryan we established that okay, while on the ice he's portrayed as this this bad boy. At the same time, there's more of a softer side to him. It's more of a vulnerable side, and I think the vulnerable side is the real Ryan, whereas the hockey side is just like a complete act. It's what people expect him to be. They expect him to basically go out there and punch a guy's lights out. But I think the vulnerable side to him is the more real him, and I think I love to see we get that explored more further on in the book. But I love how straight away just establish his character persona straight away and the struggles that he's going to face in the book later on. And I just really felt sorry for him, I think it just establishes pretty early that he has got problems in the sexual department, and it shows a more vulnerable side. And as you know, some men they do have problems in that department. So okay, it's nothing to be ashamed about. So I love straight away how we established that straight away at the beginning. Okay, and you think, okay, this might then be a problem later on when he and Fabian will go on Mr. Labba Labba Labba. So I straight away was storing that in the back of my head. No, not like that, 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 not like that. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You know what I fucking mean. I don't mean it like that. What I mean is I'm storing that fact about Ryan struggling straight away because I think it might then crop up again later on when he and Fabian finally get to go all down dirty, but Mr. Labba Labba Labba. Okay? Right, let's move on quickly. More quickly. Yeah. I also really like this reconnection story between Ryan and Fabian. I feel like it shows a different angle to what we've seen in the series so far, and it just makes their relationship just that more believable. As there's clearly history between the two. You know how I've been saying so far how I feel about somebody like about how a Shane is. I just don't find that believable, and still don't. Maybe my opinion will change when we get to the long game, but right now I still don't think that relationship is believable. Whereas with Scott and Kip, absolutely do believe it 100%. So the fact that these two, so Ryan and Fabian, the fact that these two have got history, as like a murky past. I feel like it's gonna help make the relationship just feel like a little bit more believable. And I really love the contrast between Scott Hunter's experiences and Ryan's, as being out gay hockey players, and it's a kind of reminder that it's different for each gay. So even though Scott Hunter's coming out at the end of Game Changer was the catalyst for all these other gay hockey players in the series to basically now feel comfortable in their own skin, it's not as straightforward for every single gay. Okay? So I think it's a good contrast, given how with Scott being this big massive celebrity, while Ryan is just another hockey player. So I bet it's really good to see that contrast between the two. It's just a reminder that even though every gay has to have a coming out story, every gay following that, their experiences in life is a lot different. So I just love that contrast there. Plus, any mention of Scott and Kip, I'm all for it. And like with Game Changer, we do get a very decent content of hockey, with an interesting scene happening early on between Toronto and Ottawa, as this is the first time we see Ilya play with the Ottawa Centaurs. So I remember at the end of Heat of Rivalry, Shane and Ilya were concocting this. Well, before they got outed by Shane's dad, they were concocting this strange, bizarre plan that would result in Ilya moving to Canada. He plays for a different rival of Montreal's that isn't seen as hostile as Boston. And so we get to hear in Tough Guy, and we see that Ilya has actually done it. He actually has now made the trade from Boston over to Ottawa. So we have shifted a bit in the timeline here. Okay. And Ilya also will pop up again later on, alright? So just keep him in the back of your mind as well, just not in that sense. Now, I really like the pace of Ryan and Fabian's relationship here. I feel we're given the chance to see the two of them reconnect after not seeing each other for, what was it, more than a decade, these two? Was it more than a decade? At least a decade, maybe more. And it kind of feels like, it's almost like the pair, they're getting to know one another again. And it means that we get to see the emotional side between the relationship first before we get to the whole care. Okay? Because I'd rather they get to know one another first, then we get to the fucking, okay? So, you know, meet first, then fuck, okay? Let's get to know one another first. Let's learn a bit more about our characters. And then once we feel we've got to understand the two characters, then they can go get your kits up and then start. Just hit me in the face with it. Calm down, it was Mr. Whippy! Alright? So I just love how we don't get straight into the kinky stuff straight away, although what Fabian's brand. Sex mad. Oh, let me look at what her name was again. Because, oh my lord. Wow. Wowzer. Never mind Ryan's opinion, even I'm thinking, right, Fabian, you need to get yourself some new friends. Especially ones that are not horny as hell. Or is that a song title? Might be a song title. Give me 2 seconds, guys. Just want to look up what her name was. It was the woman. It was the female cat and all. Dirty. Oh, Vanessa. Vanessa needs a cold shower. When she kept talking about all these various different sex toys, and have you tried this? I was like, oh no, I want to go home now. Oh wait, I am reading at home. Like, oh, then when she mentioned about the male vibrators, I was like, oh, hold on a bit. Huh? You mean to say that men can have rabbits too? I thought it was just ladies. I thought for men it's just basically manual all the damn fucking time, which is probably why it's so damn hard to do this. Because that's not, and I actually had to, because I couldn't believe I was reading. I actually had to, by the way. I actually had to genuinely, I kid you not, genuinely had to type into my Google search, male vibrators, and guess what? They do exist. I did clear my search history, by the way, because I did not want that being my search. But I was like, oh god, no, no, In fact, I couldn't read further. As soon as I typed, I thought, no, off. No, that was too much. Oh my god. Right, so apparently men can have vibrators too. It's not just for you ladies. Even men are allowed to play with rabbits. I will just stick to being manual. Okay, so let's just, the only thing I want to stick up me is another man. Anyway, move on! We'll move on! Okay, so, as I mentioned earlier, I really loved seeing Ryan's vulnerability and how it affects his relationship with Fabian. As he wants to protect Fabian. As Ryan clearly feels that he is bad for Fabian. And, you know, that's seen the most when obviously the two of them, you know, have their first, like, taste of intimacy. Where Fabian's clearly like, oh, yes, let's have it. You know, Fabian's more like the Mr. Lava. Whereas Ryan's holding him back. Now, the one hand he doesn't want to hold back, but he knows that if he goes for it, it's going to be bad for Fabian. So he's trying to protect, you know, Fabian's feelings here. But we finally do get Fabian's first taste of intimacy. We finally do get our first sex scene. It feels like something we've been waiting for and we've been working towards. And while it's not perfect, and I do love how, before we get straight to the whole Mr. Lava, before we even get to that, I love how straight away Ryan just comes out and says, right, you know what? Me and sex, we're not that great together. You know, we have a lot of problems trying to get it up. You know. But so I do love how we get that vulnerability before we go straight into all. Oh, okay. It's not a perfect sex scene, but we finally get our first taste of Ryan and Fabian's mutual attraction for one another, which of course leads to a physical connection, and it also shows how relatable they are, especially Ryan. Because imagine, for us men out there, we've all done it for the first time. We've all probably struggled at first, okay? So, there you go. So I love how Ryan's just being so relatable. But eventually though, right, the intimacy between the two gets a lot more physical and, dare I say, a lot more seamy. Oh yeah, go for it, oh yes! as a team, they just gotta keep their hands off one another, and who can blame them, really, you ask me? And even I feel aroused. Alright? So, you remember how when I did my book review for Game Changer, and I pretty much told you guys that every single sexy between Scott and Kip, I was just like, oh yeah, oh, yeah, yes, 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 yes! Even I was like horny every time. I was feeling a bit of that here with these two as well, which is good, because in Hero Rivalry, when I was reading Hero Rivalry, at no point did I feel turned on in any of Shay or Iya's sex scenes. At no point. Not even when I watched the TV series did I feel that at all. The only time I felt aroused in the TV series was when Scott and Kip had their one and only sex scene. If they're in season 2, more sex scenes between Francois and Robbie. Or just send me your director's cut. Because I'm very sure there was more sex scenes than there was we got on screen. I'm very confident about that. Anyway. The reason I get so aroused between Ryan and Fabian here. But luckily, the sex toys mishap just snaps me out of it. I'm like, oh god. Right. To all you couples out there, to you gay couples out there, do we really use sex toys? Do we really bring that into the conversation? Because even I'm like, no, this is making me feel, open up a commanding! It's like, I'm like, no. It's like, you had me aroused! I was ready to go! And then, it's like, kill the mood, passion killer. No, just stick to manual, guys! Just stick to manual, it's a lot better. Alright, just stick to manual. It's like, yeah, but that's one way to kill the mood. Bring out the sex toys and have them all be complete mishap. That was and any arousals right there. Oh god. Right, okay. So that's right, let's get back. Right. Let's get back to it. I'm back. As the relationship develops further, Fabian starts to become unlikable. Oh yeah. I knew this was gonna happen at some point. I knew what that was gonna make me hate them, and I knew it was gonna be Fabian. I just felt like because this relationship was a full on slow burn, and I mean full on slow burn, and that's fine. But I just knew at some point one of these two is going to do something that's going to make me hate them. And no surprises for guessing who it was. Yeah, Fabian. Now, early on in the book, we do establish that Fabian doesn't like hockey. And that's fine. We you know, what I loved is how our author, Rachel Reed, she establishes straight away that this is going to be an opposites attract story. And that's fine. Those relationships do sometimes work. In a way. Okay, but as I've mentioned plenty of times before, with me, if I enter a relationship with a guy, he has got to put up with my love to PHL full stop. That's unconditional. I'm sure there's plenty of other compromises that we can think of in the relationship, but at the end of the day, what my guy has to understand is he has to deal with the fact that the PHL will always come first. Okay? So even if he doesn't like hockey, he has to understand that the PHL is a huge part of my life. It's what I'm putting a lot of heart and soul into, and you're gonna have to come with me to North America, whatever needs be, because I can't do these trips on my own. I'd love it if I could be an independent traveller, but unfortunately, my disabilities prevent that. Okay? So I do love the opposite attract thing, and I do love how we established that Faye is not a fan of hockey straight away. I just want to put out for me, that would not work. If the guy I was in did not like hockey, that would not work. Okay? But then later on, when Fabian's like saying, "Oh, we do something right for playing," I was like, "Well, like, no, Fabian, who are you to say that Ryan should not be playing hockey? Imagine the roles were reversed, and he said to you that you should not be doing music. How would you feel then? How would you feel then? So I just don't feel like Fabian quite understands what Ryan's going through. He says he does, but doesn't really show it. So as we get towards the end of the book, when we're starting to go into the big crescendo, the big heart wrenching moments, that's when Fabian became very unlikable. And I do feel that he gives up a relationship just a bit too quickly. Okay, so things get harrowing as Duncan Harvey, who of course we met earlier in the book. I can't remember what team he was on. Should we look it up? Let's look it up. Cause I can't remember if the book said which team Harvey was on. I'm trying to think now. Was he in a previous book? So let's just look it up. But obviously, Duncan Harvey is another enforcer type of guy. So a bit like Ryan, but a lot more worse than Ryan. And I did find that the whole Harvey trying to get Ryan to fight, I found that scene, that part of the book really uncomfortable. That was uncomfortable to read. Where like literally, I think at that point you could tell that, oh my god, he really is literally high on the drugs. How did he even get on the ice? But you can tell he's literally, the drug abuse has really like took his toll on him, and you can see he's like, he is full on. It's like, oh god. Oh, I got it! It's Chicago! So it is Chicago that Duncan Harvey played for in the series, okay? But who then ends up dying? I know, this is where it gets really dark. This is where it gets really deep. Cause we haven't really had this before now. We've had other character deaths, like obviously the last book, Edie's father, but that's basically driving the plot along. Whereas this affects an actual one of the hockey players. Because obviously we don't really explore, tragedies in hockey, which we need to do a bit more because it can happen. Yeah. So as I mentioned, things get harrowing as Duncan Harvey dies due to suicide following an overdose. Now, while it's good that we do explore these difficult themes, I feel that we just didn't get much opportunity to explore that in more detail. And this is what I was saying, about how the fact that a lot of these chapters were so short, it meant that, okay, while we're chugging along nicely, there still feels like a lot of more story left on the floor here, guys. Because I feel like we need to explore the mental side of it. We need to explore the suicide of it a lot more. We need to go more detail about it and see how it can have an effect on people. Even the funeral scenes are a bit rushed, where you got obviously Duncan, the funeral Duncan, that takes place. You got Duncan's funeral happening, and Ryan attends it, and he basically sleeps in the back, and then Iya's there as well. And it's when Iya gets to be nice. Oh my god, guys, it's human. This was like when this was like, I was like, are we sure this is the same Iya Rozanov? The same Iya Rozanov who is literally just sex mad and can't keep his hands off Shane Honda for 5 seconds. It's like, wow, this is what I want to see from me in the long game. This nice, gentle, soft side. We won't guess it, but it's what I want to see. We're talking about how you need to do something that makes you happy and all that. It's like, wow, oh my god, where was this? Where was this in book 2? You might have made me like Iya. Yeah. So, Harley suicide it does have a huge impact, a huge effect on Ryan. He does realise that he wasn't happy, and so decides to make major life changes. The first being to walk away from hockey full stop, and even I was surprised by that, not just Fabian. Speaking of which, the second is to get back with Fabian, as he shows up to the club where Fabian's performing, and the two of them, they work things out, they realise their breakup was a big mistake, and obviously the two of them then, you know, get back together, and they then work out where they're gonna go now in the relationship. Cause obviously, you know, there's been massive life changes, going on, which we do briefly get to see happen in the epilogue, but I just would love to see, you know, I'd love to see more. I kind of felt like with this book. In fact, I'll just do my last two thoughts, and I'll talk about that further. So, and in fact, it's one of it's related to what I was about to say. So, as mentioned, throughout the book, I just couldn't shake the feeling that there was still a lot of story still to be told. Mainly due to how short a majority, not all of them, but a lot of stories of the chapters were quite short, so I felt there's a lot more story to be told. And then the last point I'm going to make is, despite all of that, I had the exact same thing I had when I finished Game Changer. So when and I did talk about it in the book for Game Changer, go watch that back. And in a Game Changer, I kind of felt, I really felt like I wanted to know what comes next with Scott and Kip, what happens next in their lives, because we don't really end their story on an ending. We kind of end it on a beginning, and we get to see what happens with Scott now being out and all that. I kind of feel the same here. Now, the epilogue tries to give me an answer, but I want to see more from Ryan, who, by the way, does know about Shane Elia. Okay, so we now know that Hayden knows, Shane's parents know, and Ryan Price now knows. So I would love it if Ryan can come back for book 6 at the long game, which is gonna pick up Shane Elia's story. So I'd love Ryan to come back and maybe try, you know, digging a bit further what's going on between these two, because he catches them, you know, try to go beyond mist, lava. I bet he is thinking, Shane, get your ass on that desk. So yeah, and of course Ryan Caxton's a brilliant. So yeah, so Ryan now knows. So I think it's only a matter of time before those two get caught in the act. It's only a matter of time. But we're nowhere near to coming back to those two arseholes. We've still got 2 more books to get through. We've still got 2 more brand new stories to get to in both Common Goal, which is the next book, and then Role Model, which is the 5th book. And I do now know that Role Model is going to be featured in Season 2. So I now have confirmation that Season 2 of Here Rivalry will cover both Role Model and the long game. Okay? We just got converted just a few weeks ago. So there we go. We now know Season 2 is going to fall similar to Season 1. But all in all, I really did love this book. Which was really good, because after I felt about Here Rivalry, I thought, oh, was the rest, did we peak too with Game Changer? The rest could be like downer. But no, got a bit excited again, so I'm really looking forward to continuing on. So right now, I'd have this as my second favourite of the 3 that I've read so far. But we'll see how things go. We'll see if the other 3 can maybe change that. Yeah, so I thought it was a really good book. Kind of felt like a little bit more story to be told, but all in all, it was a really good book, and it got me aroused again. So there you go. What can I say about that? What can I say about that? And so there we go. That concludes my book review for Tough Guy. Like I said, I really did like this book. I think of the 3, I think I did mention it at the end of the review. Of the 3 I've read so far, I would rank this one second. We'll see if the other 3 books can maybe change that order. It's not going to change how I feel about my favourite. My favourite's going to definitely be Game Changer. That's locked. That's locked my favourite. The rest, we'll see if they can shuffle things around on the ranking board. And I'll publish the final ranking board once I've read all the books at the end of next year. Yeah, so I said loved it. I loved seeing Ryan Fabian's story play out. And like I said, I want to know what comes next in those 2. I want to see where they go next. You know, will this birth into a full blown, you know, relationship that will, you know, stand the test of time like Scott and Kip's does, or are there going to be other speed bumps in the road, like, you know? So I just really want to know what comes next in that story. I really do, really do. That's when you know you're reading a good book, is when at the end of it you're then wondering what happens next. I mean, I felt that at the end of Game Changer, and I felt that here at the end of Tough Guy. Didn't feel that with Heat of Bribery, because I know we're going to come back to those two. Because obviously we know that book 6, The Long Game, is picking up where Heat of Bribery left off. So I didn't have that feeling of Shane Enia's story, because I know we're going to come back to that. Yeah. So I just really loved it. I felt I preferred, of the two, I preferred Ryan more than Fabian. I felt Ryan was a lot more relatable. Especially with his anxieties, especially with his sexual problems. I felt he was a lot more relatable character than Fabian was. So I really loved him. So I'll go. So when we do our character, my personal piece on characters for this book, I'll go into more detail about that with Ryan. That will come very soon. Yeah, obviously love this book. So it's my second favourite so far. We'll see if that still is the case when we get through the other books. Yeah, so now we're going to move on to book 4, Common Goal, where we get to be reunited with my team, the Admirals. We get to be reunited with the Admirals, and then more of their players get involved in the story. So yeah, so we're excited for that. So can't wait to get myself stuck into that. But that's going to conclude my book review for Tough Guy. So thanks for joining me as always next time.